Great. So thank you, Tamara and Tiffany, and thanks to the Dandenong or Greater Dandenong Chamber of Commerce. This is a great platform to be able to share some of the work that that I do, and it's great to be hearing the organisations that you represent or you're from. I suggested this particular subject given I believe we're all experiencing the same, where we can't always see people, let alone be near them to have that constant relationship. So I work in the space of leadership intelligence, a bit like an umbrella, and it's a bit like going to the Woolworths aisle of all the chocolates, trying to decide which chocolate will I have for my Friday night snack, you know, from Maltesers to Crunchy to the 12, you know, what is it that I can use in 45 minutes to help us really get our head around how we can potentially lift our game a bit more with our building of relationships, whether that being maintaining them, retaining, or even gaining new relationships. So I've gone for two areas, emotional intelligence and relationship intelligence, which is the next stage up from EI, and I'm going to distill that really simply with some elements to take us through using those two areas of intelligence, that hopefully we can implement one of them for you to take away, just to implement. When I think about COVID, I go back to 9/11, and I'm just wondering, with a kind of a show of hand, can anyone remember where they were at 9/11? Yeah, okay, so I was leading a team and in the city of Melbourne, and we were pretty high up on one of the building levels, and you know, seeing the vision in the morning, getting into the office, and everyone came into the office, and knowing very quickly that this wasn't going to work, no one was going to work, and going to one of the local cafes and camping there for the next 12 hours, given two of my local staff had a global team, two staff had people in, you know, the key buildings in New York. Fast forward to about 5 years ago, two staff, the two that were really affected, thankfully nothing happened to them, both brothers, they both said to me, Louise, you were so calm through that whole process. You calmed us down, and you enabled us to really feel that we could just get on and do what we could do and get away if we needed to, but it was your calmness. And now I'd never had that type of feedback before, and I likened that to being maybe not self-aware enough to know that that's the impact that I had. So I've really dug into EI to help me understand the impact that I have so that I can perform better in my relationships. I want you to think about research that we've heard over the last few years, and I don't think it'd be new to everyone, but a 2017 Gallup poll in the US of over 1 million employees. A resounding feedback was that people left their boss opposed to leaving their role. So you could actually use your head if you've heard that. And yeah, even hands. And 75% said that, you know, they left because of unhealthy relationships. So for me as a coach, mentor, predominantly in front of people in workshops with clients, I hear that too regularly. I'm conscious that maybe I've been a boss that someone's had to leave, and always thinking and knowing that I think we can. Oh no. I think we've really got to be honest with ourselves that we can really, really lift our game as leaders. So I really do want to talk about EI, and this is my makeshift whiteboard or flip chart. Emotional intelligence. And what might be new for you, there's only a few of us in Australia that use this, but it's not rocket science, but it is science. It's relationship intelligence. So it's the next step up on emotional intelligence. I want to pull those two together, and I've got 5 elements that I want to take you through. And it might be that you'll take 5 away. Tamara will send you out a handout that I've got, and I'll have these notes for you. So, I mean, you can sit back and take it in. It's really a lunchtime, or you can write some notes. That's up to you. And yes, you don't need to have your video. Quite comfortable with that. But if we could squash EI and relationship intelligence, with the relationship intelligence being your ability to adapt, to literally change your behaviour so that it helps other people, it helps those in your relationship. Whereas EI is more about being self-regulation of your emotions. So if you think more internal, you externalise your emotions, being really in tune with that. I'll talk about that in a moment. Relationship intelligence is about your ability to adapt and co-regulate with other people, to behave differently, to behave together. So these are the 2, and I've got to sandwich in here 5 elements to go through. So make sure I get through those 5 in the time. I've got some notes, my eyes divert. I just want to make sure that I cover off the key points that I'm squeezing into our time together. So let me get you to think about the first element. Filter. So this is a relationship intelligence approach for you to know what filter that you see life through. So I'm going to get you to think about what I'm saying here, and again, using this hand, I'm going to make it really simple on Zoom rather than pressing buttons. I want you to determine which of these 3 in particular are more like the filter that you see life. This is really simple. So the first. So when I am at my best, I most enjoy, so this is number 1, seeing others benefit from what I have been able to do for them. Is that your filter? So just hold on. When I am at my best, I most enjoy having others turn to me to lead and guide them and give them purpose. Right? That's number 2. Number 3. When I am at my best, I most enjoy being my own boss and doing things for myself and by myself. If you could choose one of those 3, what's your filter? So thank you, Nosh. So Nosh is a 2. A 2. Dale's a 2. David's a 1. So Dad, you're a blue. Dale, Nosh, you're the red. Tamara's a 3. You're a green. Sam? 1. Richard? 1. Now, Alex, Eddie and Tiffany, thank you. Yes, just use the chat. Oh yes, thanks Alex, 2. Tiffany's 3. All right. So, what has that told us? Oh, Eddie's 3. Thank you for that. Now, that's great for me. If I was your, let's say your manager, that helps me really quickly know who's people focused, who's performance focused, and who's process focused. Now, some of you may have wanted to answer with 4. Purple. And that's a bit of a combination, or it might be 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. but I don't want to overcomplicate at the moment, but just to identify that we all have a filter. The tough bit is taking those lenses off. And what you need to be able to do in your relationship is what? Put the other person's lens on. And that's not easy if you don't know people well enough. And this is what's happening now at the moment, what I'm hearing from clients, they haven't invested enough in their people. They don't know what their motives are, what their principles are, what their values are. And because we're so remote, we struggle to understand that. So that's number one for me, and that is the filter. Work on that. Just get to know people that bit better to understand what's important to them. So that, I suppose, leads me into the second element. Now, I love working with this. Not everyone does, but stay with me. Feelings. Now, we went to school, we went to college, we went to uni, but I would say in our education, there was no emotive language that was part of our education. We are really only, we're seeing our, who's got kids? Yeah, hands up primary. Yeah, hands up secondary. Yeah, any in uni? No, don't tell me your age, I don't want to know that, no. In particular at primary and secondary, they have got this amazing emotional vocabulary now. They really are learning it, in particular with a lot of the resilience work that's occurring. We've kind of sandwiched between different generations where, you know, it wasn't cool to be emotive. Whereas now, more than ever, we need to really understand how people are feeling. And I think we know, but we really need to know. We need to know how individuals are feeling. I'm a great fan of the whole history of emotional intelligence. And of late, there's a new kid on the block who is talking about or using really interesting language about how a lot of us are emotional judges rather than being an emotional scientist. We need to be an emotional scientist to be curious, to want to understand, opposed to when we were brought up, and in particular in the Australian vernacular, where we're really great at being judgmental. You know, toughen up. You know, we've got to move on. You know, don't worry about that. We've got to get the job done. So there's no emotion in there, rather than saying, you know what, I'm really challenged by this. I'm feeling really vulnerable. I'm really uncomfortable. But you know what, we've really got to get this done. I know we're working remotely. And then I would go in further into a conversation, but to really aim to attempt to get into your emotions. So let me see if I can help you broaden your vocabulary. Because when we ask people to list down what emotions, what they're feeling, generally people can come up with 3 emotions. So just think about that for a moment. You can even send it through in the chat. You know, what are you feeling right now? You don't have to chat away, but you know, how do you describe how you are feeling at the moment? Thanks, nice. So you've told me you're happy. Yep. So I've got a little tool here. Oh, David is calm. Great. So given and relaxed from Richard. Lunchtime. Friday. And while you're thinking away, I always ask people on a Friday, 5 o'clock, what's your ritual? What do you do? And what's the conversation like? And who is Friday night drinks worthy? Who do you talk about? And generally, it's because of that connection, that emotional connection you've had with that person, whether that be positive or negative. So let me just show you some emotions. Did you think about these as well? Confident. Appreciated. Involved. Empathetic. And courageous. I'd say a lot of people are feeling courageous at the moment when they use Zoom. So they're positive, whereas let's think about the negative. Tell me if you feel overwhelmed. Maybe. A little bit. Now, more about emotions, and sometimes from Tiffany, thank you. What's really tough through Zoom, what my emotional brain, there are 5 brains, and my emotional brain struggles through a screen, struggles through the phone, struggles through a device, because it wants to read your eyes. It wants to understand what you are feeling. I'm missing the cues and the signals. So it's a real challenge, and that's, I suppose, why I'm asking this way, to find out how you really feel. So we really have to be consciously asking and thinking and feeling this. And until you can understand your feelings, you can't expect them to not understand others or even seek permission to understand others' emotions. And that would be really the critical point here to make, is to seek permission to understand others, you've got to understand yourself. Some people are telling me they feel confused, especially in Australia, with states having different rules, different messages. And just one other, I suppose. This is a negative emotion, but it's not negative for us at the moment. I don't think we feel disconnected. But how about, if I can do this, how about overconnected? Does anyone feel overconnected? You can give me a thumbs up if you are. Thumbs down, no? Yes. So much going on at the moment. So much information on top of everything else. If anything, just think about how you're feeling, and then how are other people feeling at the moment. Tune into that, and that's you heightening your emotional intelligence. Louise Thomson, are you familiar with that name? Journalist, 7:30 Report, ABC. She brought out a book a couple of years ago, and she confessed that she lacked empathy, which we tend to associate as well with emotional intelligence, by zooming in on her interviewees and asking the hard questions and not showing empathy. And I suppose that's another critical lesson in EI and with people, with staff, with teams, is to really be showing some empathy at the moment. And I'm not sure if Louise Thomson has changed. I wouldn't like to be in her seat, in the other person's seat at the moment, with her drilling of questions. Okay, so we have filter and we have feelings. Filter is all about relationship intelligence, knowing that information about people's feelings is emotional intelligence. Next. This is a quick one. With emotional intelligence, big difference, men and women. Women, we have an emotional radar that is so big that we want to scoop everything up along our way. We want to solve problems. We want to take it on board. It's far more natural for us to do that. Whereas men can zoom in and focus on their radar. Now, if we could get a happy balance, that would help us. Because if we scoop up the emotions, we want to deal with too many things rather than focusing in and helping people and building the relationship, opposed to continually thinking about a broad spectrum of issues. So I like to think about that, and I like to think about, do we know about the facts? Because it goes hand in hand about the people that we're with. Because if we can focus in, we can get some facts about people. And facts are relationship intelligence. It's the data we need to know to build relationships. So here's another question for you. And I'm going to show you some post-it notes. I'll stick them up. And again, I want you to feed back and tell us this information, because when I know this, my relationship with people heightens, especially with clients. I know what works best. So the question is, how do you like to be communicated with? In particular, if we're thinking of a device. So the first one is an email. Are you an email person? Do you prefer to receive more information, more so in detail, via email? Oh, now where can I hold this office here? I'm not a great graphic artist, but do you prefer a text? Simple, brief, to the point, and in your pocket. You prefer a text. Are you more of a meeting person? You really need to get together to find your information. Are you a Zoom lover? Do you love this virtual connection where it's convenient, easy, but you get to talk and you have the opportunity to see each other? Or are you a phone user? They're your apps. Would you rather receive a call? So in your chat, let's try that. Just let us know. Are you a text? Are you an email? Are you Zoom? You really are missing that face-to-face. Tiffany's email. David, yes, meeting, then Zoom. Oh, prioritisation. Thanks, David. Yeah, combination of all. Okay, Nosh, thanks. Now, can we see the difference already in everyone? This is collecting hard data so that you know how to communicate, as simple as the device I want to receive by. So Sam, a combination. Yep, so straight away when I hear that, I'm thinking, you know what? Purple, flexible. I need to feed all of those. Combination, the text could be easier most of the time. Yes, so that then enables you to lead into, okay, as a group, let's set some rules for the future. So if we've got a really important decision to make, do we Zoom or do we text? And that's when we start, when we talk about our relationship intelligence. Again, it's finding out what's important for others. What's their filter? How do they like to communicate? How do we best co-create how we work together? If someone is feeling overwhelmed, what can I do to help you lessen that load? What do I need to do to adapt? Maybe I need to adopt a different approach. Maybe I need to communicate differently with you to help you feel less overwhelmed. And it encourages that type of conversation. So filter, feelings, focus, facts and future. They're the key elements. I want to go back to I want you to think about with your future, what is it do you do that encourages you to change, to say borrow different strengths? Do you go along and approach everything the same way, or are you more adaptable? Are you able to, and I don't like using the term pivot because it's not pivoting, it's broadening your ability to borrow different behaviours for different situations. Yeah, so not saying it's future-proofing yourself. Exactly. The new normal, from my view of the world, from what clients tell me, is going to be very different. We are going to be, as we've seen already, we are on Zoom and we're having what would have been a face-to-face session, a workshop there where we could discuss and talk, but we're choosing more of a webinar approach. When people adapt, when they, what we call borrow strengths or borrow behaviours, we do have the tendency to escalate it, which causes conflict or opposition. And that can be a concern for not only ourselves, but relationships and teams. So, for example, by using Zoom, I'm not sure about you, but has anyone noticed that you have increased the volume of your voice when you're talking in a meeting? Yeah, Nosh, yeah, David is smiling. Yeah, Sam is smiling. You know, and that's just a simple example. When you're asked to analyse something, analyse a document, P&L information, if that is not a core behaviour or core strength, it can drive people into conflict. Their self-worth is diminished and they're not going to perform at their best. But as Nosh has pointed out, we do need to future-proof, and we need to think about, well, what are some behaviours, what are some, and I use the language strengths because we're looking for a positive outcome in our relationship. What is it that we could borrow to help us in the next few weeks, next few months, or I'll call it the new normal, and start practicing that. I, for one, have made an attempt to be far more calm, because I think I lost my calmness from working in the corporate world. Calm approach, because I have a house full of people. I've had to move out of my office while my husband is teaching, and I've got kids in all the rooms teaching, and I've just decided I'm going to be calm and just take it in my stride. I have to remind myself every day. My daughter said yesterday, she said, "Mum, you're being different. There's something wrong with you." So I think I've taken my calmness too far. So I just need to co-regulate based on the feedback that's been provided. I wonder at this time, would we like to all take our mics off, if that's all right, Tamara, and have a Q&A around what it is, what behaviours have you found yourself having to borrow, adopt, adapt, just to be able to function at the moment. So if I use your name, Sam, can you help me out? Have you found you've had to behave differently?
I suppose to be a little bit more disciplined because I'm working from home. So it's kind of, I found that keeping my structure, because I am a little bit of a structured sort of person to an extent with things. So keeping that structure during the day, that I start at 9, I have my lunch, my normal time, and those sorts of things. So that changing from what my normal would be.
Yeah. Okay. So the language change from my normal. So the environment changes and we have to step into that if we're to continue moving as a social being. Okay, so thank you, discipline. Nosh, back.
Hi, Louise. I'm a huge fan of Louise, by the way. If you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you must. Her wisdom is second to none, and it's very simple. It's digestible. So I think, Sam, you've raised a very interesting point, because for me, for someone who was my position was made redundant just before COVID-19, for me, not having a structure now is gone like where the day just goes past. So for me, I had to structure myself, and I can totally understand, especially if you've got kids and family, everything. So for me, I had to structure it, but I realized that at the start, I had about 11 items, and I wouldn't even complete about 2 or 3 of them, but I got better with it. And I don't beat myself up if I don't complete. If I complete 5 of them, that's great. So now what I do is I'm using my online experience from my work and helping people like Louise and other people to flesh out their ideas and understand how face-to-face workshops and online workshops are very different. So yeah, I think...
Thanks, Nosh.
And you're welcome. And it's just that adapting yourself to the new normal is what I call, and what is normal really, just as what is perfect. Like there's nothing like that, right?
That's great. And I like the point, don't beat yourself up. Once you start setting out a schedule, we tend to put too many things on the schedule, and we go into overwork, which we just can't afford at the moment. Dale, can I put you on the spot? Have you had to adapt? Have you had to borrow a new approach?
Yes, well, I have to confess, I had never done Zoom before. Or I've been in one meeting where they had Zoom and I really didn't like it. And so now I'm everywhere across the world. So that's very exciting. And so, yeah, I love it now.
That's fantastic. You're an absolute advocate. That's great. And it is a big shift. My concern is, to use that example, is we've got so sucked into the technology that we're forgetting about the people side and the importance to connect. And again, that's our relationships. So we've literally over-connected, catching up with everyone through a screen. So it's really important that even the people we can be around, that we really allow our emotional brain to connect with people, in the same room. So yeah, that's, and you're going through the screen, it's just going crazy trying to pick up clues and cues on how people are operating. Hence why I use tools to do that. So I've got some rich data, but going through here is always a bit of a challenge. I won't put anyone else in the hot spot. Who wants to give us an example of what they have done as far as trying out a new behaviour at the moment to survive, I suppose, or thrive? Thanks, Alan, and hello. I didn't get to say hello to you before.
Hello, Louise. Hello, everyone. Greeting from Singapore. Oh, yeah, I'm from Singapore, right. Something that I do differently is that now every day before I start my day, I'll look for something that is either very positive, optimistic, or inspirational quotes or articles to read, because there's so many negative news coming in. So I want to set my day in a more positive way. So I either go online or watch some videos or YouTube that are more onto the optimistic as well as more inspirational materials.
Thank you, Alan. That's a great point. Yeah, so if we do even too much of that, we can squirrel away, can't we, and just get in more detail. And I'm always looking for what's the validated research around that, and I've lost an hour by even doing that. But that's a great way to set yourself up for the day. It helps the brain rather than producing cortisol. It will start producing more positive oxytocin to feel good for your day. So all relative to the subject. One more person. What have you done that's different?
So catching the news for that quarter of an hour, driving in each day as I come to the office, which is great, which I hadn't done previously, but certainly key to being prepared when I come to my workplace to what the day might bring, because that could have been something that happened overnight or even 10 minutes before I get here that's going to influence what could happen throughout my day. So that's a definite change. We Zoom and have been now for 4 weeks nationally, and getting to see my colleagues in very remote places in Australia is certainly quite a highlight for the day too, because we do connect, but not at this level. And I would say that for them and for me too, it's been an enlightening experience.
Charity, I think you need to go now.
Oh, is that Eddie? Maybe you might want to put your...
Oh, $2:15.
I think that's a great point, David, in that the tools have been available, the technology's available, but we haven't tapped into it, and it's allowed us to see into the lives. So we can all see into each other's rooms, and I don't think anyone's put a virtual backdrop on. So it's great to really get that more personal touch. We can actually, without even talking, you know, we can literally feel where you're at because your personality is coming out. What I wanted to point out, if you've been wondering, the yellow post-it notes, this is all about leadership. And I mentioned the umbrella of leadership intelligence. And I look at leadership on 3 simple levels. The self-leadership, which is in particular, as we would understand emotional intelligence, it's really understanding ourselves, how we feel about things, our empathy towards people, and how we impact other people by the way that we feel, and how we can potentially influence other people by feeling different and working on and consciously working on our emotions. Social leadership is, in particular today, is the theme about building relationships. If you have people are responsible for people, a parent, you lead a committee, any social leadership that you have is impact. Everything you do, everything you say, your behaviour is on watch. And you can really work on your social leadership to have a greater impact in particular with your team in the current environment. Businesses will tell me when I work with them that simply by hosting an inclusive team meeting, by getting the team to organise the meeting rather than one person, the person who would generally run a meeting, that devolved responsibility, making people accountable, lifts the feeling of the team, and there's a social connection that occurs. It's not part of the conversation today, but it's awareness of starting on self and the EI in particular, the socialness, so that's co-regulation of relationship intelligence. And by doing those 2 levels of leadership, can take you to strategic leadership. It's all very well to plan and have vision and work on where you want to move and head. But if you don't have yourself in order and you don't have the team inclusive, working with you, in particular in the current times, it's a hard slog. And I think we know that, we've seen it, you've seen some creative businesses doing amazing work, but you've also seen those that have not changed. They're still operating the way they always have and haven't allowed for the change in environment. So think about where you're pitching your leadership, what you're doing, what are you proactively changing to help lead at this point in time. So, how about a bit of Q&A? Tamara, how will we just open microphone like we did before.
Yep, I've got everyone now on unmute, or if you prefer, you can put it in the chat and I will ask your question, or Louise can see it as well. So has anyone got any questions specifically for Louise?
Or even commentary or your view, your thoughts. This is the world according to Louise and Business and Clients. Go, Richard.
Hi. You talk about what you've changed and what we've been able to do. I've found one of the things where I've had to found it frustrating is not being able to do micro meetings. And what I mean by that is the informal chats you have on the way into a meeting, the quick aside you might have in the middle of a meeting, and being a touch base. What we've got here is maybe a normal meeting of 12 or however many people here, which may be a typical corporate sized meeting. But I can't chat with anyone. I can't have the quick, and sometimes it can be just as simple as, what was that the presenter that Louise referred to? I can't do that. I'm just stuck in this constrained.
Corridor chat.
Yeah.
Has anyone solved that problem? Has anyone, okay, David, what have you done for that?
Started joining the meeting early and conversing with whoever's joined at this 5 minutes beforehand, and perhaps just one other person on there, and then you can talk, like you said, quite candidly and have a discussion before you go in, but then you get 10, 12, 15 people join in and that's gone. So it doesn't last long, Richard.
No. Well, but a lot of webinars don't let you in. You sit there and you got a screen that says the presenter will let you in at some point. And that, so yeah, you have got some that are there, but sometimes it's just you want a quick clarification of something in the middle of the meeting, and the trouble is you can't do that, and you sit there and you may have missed a salient point, and some of the meaning of the whole meeting's gone by. So some of that interaction you can do.
Yeah. Are you talking specifically, David, Richard, about being in a Zoom setup?
Well, yeah, any video conferencing setups.
Yeah. So Nosh, you're a bit of a Zoom expert. How could you help Richard there as far as?
So Richard, here's my top tip for you, and sounds like you're trying to get some clarification, and I'll tell a quick story. So if I wanted to, I've worked in an organization where no structure, not like everyone's ready to throw you under the bus if the idea is not well perceived. So what I would do is basically talk. So this is a perfect atmosphere at the moment with COVID-19. So what you could do is, if you don't have their contact number, you could just email them and say, hey, do you mind if we have a quick chat over the phone before our meeting? I just wanted to clarify something, and I don't want to throw you off in the meeting or take your meeting off to a tangent, because like you said, Richard, some setups on Zoom will allow you that waiting room like David mentioned, but some won't, and you'll just be dropped in. So that's fine, but what you've done with that email is you've made that connection already with that person, like Louise was saying, like, you know, we don't have virtual backgrounds or anything of that sort. So we are getting to see things. And I've been into Zoom meetings where if I've lost, like, so I've got things written down, okay? I like to write things down so I can then, it helps me. So basically what you're trying to do is you can ask someone in the chat, say like, oh, I missed that one, what was that thing? And it's okay to do that, because that just means that you are paying attention. And people, and my other thing is just be yourself, because everyone else is taken, as Oscar Wilde says, so, you know.
Thanks, Nosh. So Richard, in Zoom, and I'm not a Zoom queen at all, you can just send a direct message through chat to the person that you might want to check with, if you haven't already tried that. Just need to unmute yourself.
Sometimes, if we remember back to the last Dandenong meeting out at Toyota, it was a matter of being able to meet people that we haven't seen before. What I've got is a screen full of 12 people. Now, if those 12 people were at Toyota the other week, I may have bumped into them and been able to have an impromptu and find out more detail about who they are, you know, where they fit, because the room's full of, to most people, that they didn't know everybody in that particular meeting. So it's not just the one thing of I did miss that understanding. It's the whole thing of small micro meetings that with people that you don't know, and they can be, I just want to know you more, or and all of that sort of stuff. And I haven't found anything in isolation that can change that.
It's a personal touch, isn't it? And quick, and that's understandable. Totally understandable. So I'll just see anyone up. Yeah, go Tamara.
Can I just say, Richard, that's a great point. Tiffany and myself with the Chamber are actually working on a virtual networking night. So if anyone hasn't already, please go and like our Facebook page, because that's where most of our updates are. We're also trying to be very active on LinkedIn. So we're hoping that by the end of May, at the very, very latest, that we're going to have that virtual networking space up and running. And definitely you can meet some people that you may not have met before and interact in that formal and informal setting.
Yeah, one thing I did see, and I haven't had a chance to fiddle with it, is there's essentially this room concept within Zoom, and you can just send people off. I'm not sure how much control the mediator has, but I believe that you can just send a group of 3 people, right, you go off. And maybe that's a method of doing it. I only saw it happen once in a meeting I was on, and I haven't been able to find out or work on it as to how it actually works.
Yeah, we're trying to get our heads around the technology first so that it's a very flawless, seamless experience for everyone that joins us.
So next week I'm running a session, Tamara, on the 3 roles of a leader: coaching and mentoring and facilitating. So I'm going to be testing you, Tamara, to work with me to use the breakout rooms so that you can have a closer, intimate conversation. That's the challenge. And it is tinkering, Richard, isn't it? It's tinkering. It's just trying out, what can I try that little bit different? Be that scientist and explore rather than judging and maybe stopping what's in front of us. Anyone else? Any questions or commentary around this subject? Oh, good on you, Tamara. Just pop that link, grab it while it's there for that. Oh, that's next Wednesday. Super. Thank you. All right. So, no commentary. Yeah, sorry. Back to you, Nosh.
Sorry, I don't mean to hog the attention, but I think what Richard was saying was the water cooler conversations, as we call it, is, definitely. And we all miss that, especially, and sometimes understanding the nuance between what, just understanding that nuance of why this decision or why we're playing this strategy or why we're doing this helps a lot. I think in this time, during this time where everyone's working in their own little bedroom, boardroom, garage, it's people will be, I found that people connect with you from their heart rather than connect with Nosh as a professional, connect with Nosh as a person versus so it's kind of that as well. And I'm more than happy, Richard, for anyone to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can help you out with it. Definitely.
Lovely offer. Yeah, I'd agree that I think because we're all feeling a bit vulnerable at the moment, where we're trying something new, that we're more open, we're more forgiving, and our emotional intelligence has definitely heightened. Okay, so I'll wrap it up, and I'm going to ask you to think about what is it you're going to try or experiment with, or be that emotional scientist. What is it you're going to do to take away out of your dedicated time here this afternoon? So I talked about emotional intelligence and relationship intelligence. So EI, self-aware, the impact your emotions have, getting permission to then talk to others about their emotions and feelings and how you might help that change. Relationship intelligence is it's all about adapting your behaviour to help and work with people. It's about really finding the right behaviour at the right time, in the right situation, if you can work towards that. Sandwiched in between, lunchtime, filter, really see where the person's coming from, not through your lens. So, person might be a greenie, I'm a red lens, person's green, I'm going to see the world from their lens. Feelings, really start increasing your vocabulary around emotions. It's okay to ask people how you're feeling, and don't take good, not bad. That's not emotive. I need you to go that little bit further and be the scientist and explore, so that you can then, and you share how you feel. Focus then get off your radars and see what you can work on together. Validate your facts, no assumptions. Think about what is it that we can work on together, so that you can co-create some change of behaviour to be able to build your relationships today, future possibilities. And think about the leadership. Have you focused enough on yourself? Are you accountable? Are you socially aware of the impact that you make? And if you're strategic, have you done the other two? So get in contact with me. Let me know. I'm happy for you to do it through chat, but I want you to really think about what is it that you could concentrate on. And you can flick me an email. So Louise at louisethomson.net up here, or I'm on LinkedIn. Check out posts, and relative subjects are there at the moment, and tell us and be accountable. Thank you, Tamara. Yes, that's my email address. So it's been great. Well, no, it's not great. I've really enjoyed being able to share. Love to be in the same room as you and have more of a workshop and conversation. And I look forward to maybe seeing you next week. You might want to join us on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m, where we talk about the role of coaching and mentoring and facilitating in our leadership role.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll let you all go now that lunch break is almost over. Do appreciate, David, do you have a question? I'll just unmute you.
See you, David.
No, David's going. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Louise for having us again. And like she said, we do have another session next Wednesday night. The link was in that chat there, and it's also going to be sent out in an email in a few hours' time this afternoon, as well as Louise's direct contacts if anyone wants to get in contact with her personally or professionally. So thank you all for coming.
Thank
and
you,
a
Gosh,
reminder,
thank you.
the video will be uploaded onto YouTube hopefully next week.
Thanks, Tamara. Thanks, Richard and Sam and Alan and Noel.
Thank you.
Everyone.
See you, Tiffany. Thank you too.
Thank you. See you.